everybody. Welcome to the Hallmarkies podcast. We are very excited today to have another one of our Hall stars here. This is one of our favorite guests that we've had
Oh,
with us many times. We have Catherine Disher is here on the podcast. And Catherine, thank you so much for coming on.
hi, Rachel. Thank you so much for having me.
And I don't know if you realize, but now you have been on our show 6 times. That makes
Really?
you the most uh, frequent guest actress. There's only one other person who's been on our show 6 times. That is writer Nina Wyman. So the two of you are the queens of our podcast.
Well, I'm flattered. Thank you for having me from
Yeah,
my bedroom studio.
yeah.
We're still locked down up here in Ontario, going in the right direction, but
Oh
locked
my
down. So
gosh.
I'm doing a lot of work in my home studio. How are you there? Are you out and about? Is
Yeah,
everything?
we're pretty open. I mean, we were lucky here in Utah, uh, compared to some other places. The numbers were never as bad here as they were some other places. And so we've
You know
had like,
what? I'm realizing that luck has very little to do with it. It's about following public health
yeah,
measures. And we're all sort of responsible
yeah,
individually and as a group to each other. So
yeah.
it's probably because people in Utah have been very responsible about socially distancing and wearing masks. I think I'm going to continue wearing masks
Mm,
beyond this. I mean, there was no flu season here. I don't know about there.
yeah.
And there's so
It's
many Asian
true.
countries where they've been wearing masks for years. So I think on public transit and in crowded places, if you have to go to a hospital for some sort of test, I would wear a mask
Hmm.
in the future.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I mean, I remember when I went to Japan in 2005 and remember seeing a lot of people wearing masks, like on the subway
Yeah.
and things like that. It's other places, it's pretty common.
Yeah, and
And
I
yeah,
see sort of Asian immigrants who moved to Canada in the past before COVID would wear masks, if they were biking or which makes sense, right? You're not getting car fumes in your face
mhm,
and just in the wintertime sometimes. So they bring
yeah,
their those practices from the countries that they have immigrated from. So
mhm,
um, anyway, I just think it's sounds practical to me, and no one up
yeah,
here is going to make a fuss if I wear a mask in a public situation after the pandemic has died down. So
yeah.
anyway, enough about that.
Well,
We're all sort of
but
concerned with.
how has this quarantine everything been for you? As what's that experience been like for you?
Well, my son sort of moved back when quarantine happened
Hmm.
last year, and or began the first round of quarantine began, and so we have enough space in our house that we have sort of he has a there's a big sort of rec room in the basement that feels like it's above ground. It's not really a basement. And so we have lots of personal space, which is good. And he does voice work as well. He's in university. And so he's finishing a degree and it's all been online. And he does voice work as well. So I have it finally, I used to be head of I founded and was head of the voice committee at ACTRA Toronto, which is our actors union here in Toronto.
Hmm.
And for years, I've sort of arranged workshops for people on how to set up your own home studio and never did it myself. And so last year, I was sort of compelled to go out and buy this snazzy microphone and, the Audient ID4, this sort of interface for my computer and fancy headphones and this sort of weird Cobra hood thing that fits over my mic that dulls the sound. So I,
Mm.
I have a complete setup, and I was able to continue doing cartoons from home and commercial stuff, and my son was too. And I sort of have clothing to soundproof my bedroom. I have clothing hung by hangers on all the moldings around the room. So my only problem is that if the neighbors next door are playing basketball outside, I have to run out and say, "Hello, excuse me, I'm
Yeah.
trying to work from home. Could you possibly not do that for about 45 minutes?" So that's about it. So it's been actually so that work wise, and also we went back to work. We shot a whole season of Good Witch starting
Hmm.
last October, which was I was very nervous to go back. I have to admit, but we were being tested 4 times a week, and we all wore masks. And I think the testing, over the course of the 6 months that we shot over, because it was sort of a longer season, we went over Christmas and came back,
Hmm.
and of course the American cast members had to quarantine again. They had to factor that time in again. And so in all that time, I think they picked up just a couple of cases through the testing, but there was no on-set transmission. So it felt like a very safe environment. In fact, I felt safer on set after a while than I felt anywhere else except for my bedroom at
Mhm.
home.
Yeah, I know a lot of voice actors record in their closets because I talked to a lot that because it dulls the sound and it keeps it. I've talked to a number of them that have a little setup in their closets.
Well, my problem is I've got a window right in front of my bedroom, right in front of my setup. So, one day, for instance, the tree cutting guys showed up across the street as I was trying to record, and I had to kind of go, and it's on my desktop, so I can't actually go in a closet, but I do a cartoon with
Hmm.
another actress, and they put us both on the same lines. We're in each other's headphones, and she's in her closet in a condo, which, you have to ideally, you'd have a place that has no windows, so you can control any outside
Right.
noise. Um, but yeah, she's always in her closet and kind of bumping into things and things falling on her, and it's pretty funny to listen to.
So are you back recording in studio at all, or are you
No,
still
we're
doing
doing
most at home? Yeah.
it's all at home. I mean, as I said, we're still in lockdown here in Ontario. But I think the truth of the matter is that we've had auditions all year, self tape, or on Zoom. There have been Zoom audition sessions, and I've started a couple of new cartoons, and it's all done at home. So everybody's at home. The producers are at
Hmm.
home. I think the only person in the studio is the engineer, and a lot of these engineers actually have a setup at home. So they're at home too, and we're just all connected through Source Connect or one of the other, pieces of software that can do that. So I don't
Yeah.
know if people are gonna, I don't know whether it's less expensive for the company to do it this way, or I don't know how if this will continue. Honestly,
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's really exciting to be an animation fan right now because the this year is just such a great year for animation already, and the films that have come out, they all have had at the end say that this was completed at home. All the animators are at home.
really? Oh, that's
Yeah,
interesting. Yeah.
yeah. Like if you watch Raya and the Last Dragon or Mitchell's versus the Machines, some of these new films. They have that at the end, and because it was one of the only art forms that was practically unabated, could go on at without any problem during the pandemic. So I think that's what makes going to make this a very prolific year as far as animation goes. And of course, that includes shows and films, of course. But yeah, it's exciting.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, we reached the sort of point in all this technology that it's cheap enough that people can have their own
Hmm.
versions of it at home.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be some big expensive setup, in a studio building.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I know, and it's really easy. It's really
Mhm.
easy to roll out of bed and warm up a little and then go. Although there've been times when I haven't been quick enough to turn my camera off, so I now put a towel over my camera just in case I'm and I've had some cartoons where they said, "Yeah, we really want to be on Zoom and they want to see." I said, "Yeah, no.
Yeah.
I've got my, they want GarageBand backup for me to record myself backup while they're doing it, and we're on Source Connect via the interface, and
Hmm.
I've got my iPad I'm using for my script." And they said, "Well, you could put Zoom in your phone." I said, "Yeah, that's one layer of technology too many for me. I'm just at my limit right now."
Yeah. I know. I always, even if I'm just doing an audio interview, I always make sure I'm not in my pajamas because
Just in
just
case.
in case. Yeah. You never know. Yeah, that's very true. Last time we talked to you, it was towards the beginning of the pandemic, and you and your son were doing a lot of cooking and
Oh,
baking.
yeah.
Yeah. Did that
Well,
continue?
I go in spurts. I get to the point where, he's not very confident about cooking, so if he cooks, he wants to do it with me. And there are just times when I'm like, I don't want to cook anymore. I just
Yeah.
so a lot of Uber Eats we've been ordering out quite a bit, and we've got
Uh-huh.
to tone that down. Um, but especially when I discovered that yes, in fact, you can get Starbucks. You can order Starbucks to your house. That was
Uh-huh.
that was a watershed moment. So, yeah, I think I'm like a lot of people really got to cut back on that now, and
Same.
yeah, and
Yeah.
go out and pick up. I don't worry too much about going to a restaurant and picking up. It's just the convenience. You get used to the convenience of
Yeah.
never leaving your house.
Yeah.
Um,
It's kind of scary, like that it's like, when am I going to get used to being with people again, with other humans?
Yeah, I have to say, the weird thing was, from last March until October before we started to shoot, it was 6 months of, be careful. You have to be careful with other people, and it's all about
Yeah.
staying away from other people. And all of a sudden it was like, and now you're going to go back to work with 60 people on a set. And you're going
Right.
to take your mask off, of course, because although there were a couple of times I was the worst one, I think, about entering a scene with my mask on and then having to go cut. And I was like, what did I do? And they're like, your mask. I said, oh no. So, but yeah, that was a difficult, in the first couple of days, I had a lot of anxiety about
Yeah.
being in a room with people, and it dissipated very quickly because they were all abiding by the rules. And after a couple of months, and this is before the variants were sort of rampaging around too. We finished in February.
Mm.
Um, and so, but again, the film industry has been able to keep going here because everyone has been so meticulous about testing and about trying to maintain social distancing and all these new rules, and one person in the makeup trailer at a time. And so there's all the stuff that they're doing to
Hmm.
mitigate the risk, and they've really done a fantastic job up here. So that's why, the film industry has been one of those few industries that government has just completely left alone in terms of public health measures.
Hmm. Yeah. It seems like all the various Hallmark properties have done an incredible job with all the COVID restrictions and everything like that.
Oh, our
Yeah.
producers were fantastic. They were
Mm.
just great. And the studio where we shot, I mean, everyone was being super duper careful. And everybody was complying. There was nobody who was sort of flouting the rules or anything. On our show, everyone was extremely cooperative, and it felt good. I look back on it now and think, what would I have done if I hadn't been able to go to work? I would have spent the winter inside, my son and I, and it would have been, I think I would have gone insane. But the fact is, I went out, even though I thought it
Yeah.
was driving me insane to go out, it was actually
Right.
keeping me sane.
Yeah. Yeah. It's been, as someone who was pretty much inside the whole winter, it was an adventure. I mean,
Oh,
thankfully I have the podcast, but still, it's not quite the same. We just started now doing film critic screenings again. We've had two or three, and it's just like, oh, my friends, I'm so happy to see you.
or
I'm
hear you.
vaccinated now, and
Oh, you've
uh,
actually gone out. Oh, I see. Okay.
yeah, yeah. So I've been vaccinated since the 30. I got the second dose the 31st of March.
Right. Well,
So,
you guys are awash in vaccine. Our rules about, we have a 4 month, they're waiting 4 months between doses up here. So for instance, I've had a first
oh,
dose, but it's because of supply. It has nothing really to do with health measures, other than their priority was to get as many people a first dose as possible. And the first doses have proved remarkably effective. The UK, we sort of followed the UK's model, and
mhm,
it's really worked very well for them over there. So we're getting more and more vaccine here, and I think probably by June or July I'll be able to get my second dose.
mhm. Yeah, I mean, I know that it's not a like perfect vaccine in the sense of like you could still get COVID, but it certainly uh, it helps a lot. So,
Yeah, and it's
yeah,
100% effective against death and hospitalization, which is,
right.
the key,
Right.
I think. So I'm good with
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, me too. We'd like to take a second from this episode of the podcast to celebrate our sponsor of this episode, and that is the Hallmarkies Patreon.
Do you love Hallmarkies podcast?
Do you want an inside scoop into what happens on the podcast?
Do you want early access to episodes and loads of cool perks?
Now is the time to become a patron of Hallmarkies Podcast.
By becoming a patron, you get to access our patron Facebook group.
You can request episodes or even be a guest on the podcast.
And most importantly, any patron can join our monthly movie watch-alongs with stars like Paul Campbell, Natalie Hall, and more.
It's as low as $2 a month to join in and become a special part of the Hallmarkies family.
Please consider, and we will love you forever.
Go to patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
That's patreon.com/Hallmarkies.
So, how do you feel about how, as a whole, how season 7 kind of turned out? How do you feel about the
I think it was the
overall?
best season we've ever had, honestly.
Really?
It was it was a lot happening, and it felt like it really felt like it flew by. Um and as I said, we shot from October until Christmas, and then we had a hiatus for about a month, and then we had to put in an extra couple of weeks for the American cast members and the Canadians who live in LA, who came back and had to quarantine again. That was hard for them, for a second time. And then we shot until the end of February, and it was it was really fun. Like, it was great to see people and be around people. And now, of course, I go to the dog park, and all my old phobias have come back. I'm like, stay away, 12 feet away out in the dog park. But it went really, really well. And partly because, everyone was very aware of the health restrictions. And so they didn't want to do overtime, and they wanted to be as efficient as possible. So it was possibly our most efficient shooting season I can remember. And things just seemed to whip by. It was great. I prefer, I'm not a 20 take person. I kind of get worse as the takes go on. I might screw up take number 1, but take number 2 is where that's my sweet spot. By the time I get to take 5, I start to get worse. So this was really great in terms of, moving decisively and swiftly through a shooting day. So all in all, I thought it was great. And we had, because of, maybe because of quarantine, because we started a bit later, we had a bunch of scripts finished before we started shooting. And so to not be getting scripts the day before, as sometimes happens when you're shooting, and totally understandably, this was great. You said we got to look ahead and work ahead. It was all very smooth, I have to say.
That's great. So since you started later, we normally get a Halloween episode / movie.
I know.
And I was wondering, are we going to get anything Christmassy with Middleton?
We generally don't celebrate Christmas in Middleton, or if we do it off screen. To be honest, I can't remember. I do have a bit of pandemic brain, I will say. I was very good at memorizing my lines. That's always easy for me. If you asked me the next day, I couldn't tell you what they were. And I don't have a huge memory about stuff like that. I don't, but as a general rule, Halloween is the one holiday that we tend to celebrate. And unfortunately, you're right, because we couldn't start in August. We couldn't get everything together properly to pandemically shoot until October. So yeah, I know I missed the Halloween episodes.
Yeah. They did do a Christmas movie way back, where
when Cassie got married the first time.
She got married.
That was an anomaly. That was but that was beautiful. I remember the shoot and everything, and the little white lights and the horse-drawn carriage. That was very pretty. There is something to be said for shooting in the wintertime.
Yeah. I just think it would be really fun to see Middleton and Grey House, Christmasified.
That would be nice. Well, I never say never. I have no idea what's in store.
Yeah, that'd be fun. So Martha's going to be a grandma, and that seems very exciting. And that must have been a fun path to take the character on.
That was fun. Reminded me of when my son was born. My mother couldn't decide what she wanted to be called, and it would change daily. She'd say, "Call me Go-Go." No. Call me Momo. No. And I finally said, after about a couple of months, I said, "Look, if you don't decide on something soon, you're going to be grandma." She was like, no, I don't want to be grandma. But she ended up being grandma because she just couldn't decide. But yeah, I think Martha just loves that. grandmama, of course, not just
Mm.
grandma. And it's so much fun working with the actress who plays Claire, who plays Martha's daughter, because
Mhm.
and she told me the story again that when she'd come into audition, they said, he married her son married someone just like his mother. So so she had watched the show, and so when I first did scenes with her, she was using her hands a lot, and I thought, huh, that's odd. I don't do that in real life. I only use my hands like that as Martha. And so
Oh, really?
yeah, so I sort of went, huh, I don't think two of us can do this in a scene at the same time. So there's scenes where I'd watch her do it, and Martha would be a bit more laid back, because I thought, is that what I look like? Oh, okay. She did a very good job. She's got a lot of great energy, and
Yeah.
that was fun shooting that scenes, because there's a flashback in that episode um, to when Cassie was pregnant with Grace, and so that's
Oh,
kind of fun, the juxtaposition.
yeah, that sounds really good. Yeah, just in the premiere, I enjoyed that whole dynamic of you and Tom going nuts, dealing with Claire, in the bell. It's
Oh
funny.
my gosh, that's right. That was in the premiere. Yeah, that would drive me crazy. That would actually she was kind of needy, kind of
Yeah,
hormonally excited and very needy.
yeah. Well, I mean, I thought that it was kind of underhanded of Cassie to give you the bell to begin with. Like, what was she trying to test you?
That's true.
Yeah,
At first it was a lovely little noise, but after a while, even a lovely noise can be grating.
yeah, definitely. So we have to ask, would you eat a Tinsdale on toast?
You know, I thought about that. I'm not opposed to sauerkraut. I mean, I love sauerkraut on hot dogs, sauerkraut and
Right.
mustard.
Yeah.
I have never actually tried a tuna, a Tinsdale on toast, because it's tuna and sauerkraut.
Yeah.
And I just, you know what? I don't know if anyone's tried it.
Yeah.
I'd
Well,
be interested to hear
yeah,
if
we
anyone.
were thinking about it, because I mean we have pickles in tuna all the time.
That's true. But don't
Uh,
people usually use sweet pickles in tuna, or do they
yeah,
use
people
sour?
usually use sweet, and so and having it be a tuna melt, I feel like that's a lot of soft on soft.
Yeah, you know what? You want a hard base, you want it to be
Hmm.
very toasty on the base. I'm not fond personally of hot sandwiches, because I don't like what it does to the bread.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just going to come out and say that.
controversial.
You might lose some listeners, but I'm sorry. I have to take a stand.
Yeah, I don't know how they came up with that. I'd be curious to know how the writers decided on that.
It's almost like they thought of the worst combination that they could think of in diner food and put it
Right.
together. I think there's mustard on there too, and some kind of cheese. It's a melt.
Yeah,
So,
it's a melt.
ah!
Um, so, so we have a lot of new loves happening this season. It seems like, at least by the trailer,
It's
and
true.
yeah, so that must have been kind of fun.
Very fun.
To,
I don't know how far. When will this air? I'm not even sure how far the season will have gotten by the time that this
yeah, I
podcast
think this
airs.
will air in June. Uh, the probably first or second Monday of June.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So quite a bit into the season then.
yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of Stephanie and I forget her French teacher's name. Uh,
Oh, French teacher.
oh dear. Yes. So there's that sort of meet cute that happens, and Joy and Zoe are also on there in sort of a meet
Mhm.
cute way. And yeah, there's lots of different stuff. I mean, will Stephanie and Adam end up together? That's one of the questions of the season. And Donovan and Abigail's lengthy engagement now.
Yes. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, are we going to see more of you and Dottie kind of uh, playing against
Yeah,
each
yeah. I
other.
think I'm trying to remember. I think you see us going at it quite a bit this season, and
Mhm.
there's a lot more of Tom this season, which is nice.
Ooh.
Because of our our grandchild being born, and it's just nice to. I always like it when in past years when Martha didn't have a date to large events. It was where's Tom? I don't know.
Yeah.
But it's always fun working with Paul Miller, who plays Tom. He's sort of the quintessential sort of morally upright good guy, small town good guy, and
Yeah.
he really is like that in real life too. Not a small town good guy, but he's just a very
Yeah.
he is what he appears to be, even in real life.
Well, I really liked that plot last year with the whole thing where he runs against you,
Oh,
and
that's right.
yeah,
Yeah.
that was
Yeah,
good.
he doesn't antagonize me as much this season, which is good for his health.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, and we sort of we lost the location that we had been using for the interiors of our new house. And so we kept using it for the exteriors, but we ended up having to find a new place, this massive, amazing, sort of beautiful 150-year-old house in the middle of the woods, about an hour and a half from Toronto. It was gorgeous location that kind of it served as a location for a lot of different interiors, but it's a very fancy house on the inside.
Mm,
I know, very fancy. I'm
yeah.
I'm just shocked. I feel like, are we still in Middleton? It's so fancy.
Yeah, it's not. It might be in Blairsville.
Oh God, no, never. Blairsville.
Yeah,
I know.
right.
It's almost like a drinking game. I miss screeching Blairsville. They don't write that for me so much anymore.
I know, because of Donovan, probably.
I know, but every once in a while I try to sneak it in.
Yeah.
And if it's a director who hasn't worked with us before, they always look at me like, "Why are you doing that?" Can't help myself. It's like a red flag to a bull.
Yeah. So I guess we also seems like get to know George a little better this season, which I'm
Yeah, I
excited
guess he's
about.
he's he's also got, a little relationship happening.
Yeah, I'm excited about that. That'll be fun.
I know. I wonder, do fans wonder what happened to his wife?
Right.
I always
Yeah,
wonder about that. It
he's
was a long time ago, but
yeah. No, I mean we have talked about it before on the podcast.
like where's Gwen? I know,
Yeah.
no one mentions it anymore. I sort of wondered if it might just pop up in one line. Well, after Gwen left me to go live in Arizona full time or whatever it was.
Right.
But
Yeah.
that never happened. So for all we know, George, could be heading towards bigamy. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But it was
So
nice that he has some companionship this season too. That was great. It shows you at any age,
right.
romance at any age is possible and something that you can look forward to and enjoy. It doesn't have to be, two people in their 20s.
Right. Well, that's one good thing always about Good Witch is you'd had everything from Bailey to the whole gamut. So
Yes, and
yeah.
I'm going to tease that Bailey makes a little appearance this season, which is lovely. It was
Ooh.
so nice to see. Yes.
Oh, that's exciting. Uh, so they have a movie in the park and it's Grease.
Yes.
And so I wanted to know what classic movie would you pick to watch in a crowd like that?
Huh.
Um,
That's interesting. Well, I don't know if I'd watch anything in a crowd right now, but in general, what would I pick?
yeah.
That's a very good question. Because of course, Greece, everyone got to jump up and dance, and it was that was sort of fun to see and to be outside with. I don't know. As a person, for me personally, I don't really think I'd like to watch movies outside. Number
Mhm.
one, the number of bugs that get attracted to a big white screen that
That's
is
true.
emitting light. Oh my God. That was like something out of a horror movie when they weren't
Uh-huh.
actually playing, something on the screen and they turned it off and it was just this big white screen covered in bugs. So that I'm having trouble just imagining getting past that. I don't know.
Oh
That's
yeah.
very interesting. Gosh, what would
When
it
I was in college, they did a movie on the lawn, and it was Wait Until Dark with Audrey
oh,
Hepburn, and that was such a fun experience and fun movie because there's a very iconic jump scare in Wait Until Dark,
Right.
and just the like being a part of that as a whole crowd and everybody else, kind of thing.
In the dark. Yeah, no,
Yeah,
that
yeah,
would
that
that
was
would be
fun.
cool. I was trying to
Yeah.
think what other movies would be sort of well placed to be outside.
I also think that Jurassic Park would be
I was
really
just
good.
gonna say that, because they're outside and it's they're always outside, kind of in the jungle, and any of those Jurassic Park movies. That's true.
Mhm.
That would be a good thing to do too.
Fun.
You'd be waiting for something to come out of the woods right next to the projector.
Right? Yeah. So it seems like this season is embracing magic more, and
Yes.
that seems to be fun. Like we have the bags of dirt, and I mean, and even last season we saw it more with like the curse being something that was like tangible, that
Yes.
like Abigail could talk at times, things like that, that we like it's more than just intuition.
Yes, no, I think you're right about this. That magic is much more overt this season, and it's
Hmm.
partly because you now have the sort of three. You have Joy, Abigail, and Cassie. Three Merowicks,
Hmm.
and I think that there's something about that number of three,
Right.
and maybe it'll be maybe they'll change the name of the show to Good Witches. I have no idea, but yes, so much more magic, and I feel so left out. I would think
Yeah.
Martha identifies so closely with Cassie now, and sort of being one of the family, that she's kind of hoping that some long distant Merriwick relative will turn up in her family tree.
But do you think that Martha would handle magic well?
No, I think what would happen is that Martha would think that she had magic, but actually didn't. So, one coincidental thinking that the phone is going to ring and then it does would be enough to send Martha off to go buy a wand and a cauldron and figure that she too had
That would be
magical
funny.
powers.
That would be funny. I mean, you wouldn't want her to get like mad with power,
No,
Martha.
exactly. You'd have to assume that Martha would maybe overstep
Yeah.
and then learn a lesson and get drawn back in. But, yes, accidentally turn people into frogs. Now, Martha, I don't think she could be trusted, really. It's like giving a 6-year-old magical powers.
Yeah. So, why do you think that Good Witch has lasted as long as it has? What do you think makes it work?
I think a lot of it has to do with uh, the idea of living in a sort of a bucolic small town.
Hmm.
I think especially, it especially kind of rings true now during the pandemic, the sense that you're in a place where everyone supports each other, and that it's slightly maybe slower pace of life, and relationships really matter, and when somebody new comes to town, everyone is eager to meet them. Everyone loves the thought of new people.
Hmm.
And so I think there's that. I don't know what it is about the show. It's sort of it's greater than the sum of its parts in a weird way. It makes you feel good. It
Yeah.
makes you feel um I I was watching something the other night, and it's a new series called Gangs of London, which is probably it's a British series, but it's now been picked up by AMC, and it's probably the most violent thing I have ever seen on television. And I can sort of watch an episode here and there. I can't watch more than one at a time.
Yeah.
And all I could think of was, I just want to go and turn on The Good Witch. I don't want zombies. I don't want vampires. I don't want, gang violence and crime. I just want to see people. I don't know. There's something, really magical about just the feeling that everyone
Hmm.
gets. And also the fact that Cassie is there. Her magic is really about bringing out the best in people. And it's a very positive message. And, and I try to bring some humor, and there is humor written into the show. So
Hmm.
I think it's a combination of all those things.
Yeah. Yeah, that's why I think like it doesn't take itself too seriously. It just has fun, and I like seeing the little stories of the couples that Cassie brings together. Uh,
Yeah, there are all these little, it's the little minutiae of people's lives,
mhm.
and they can be very heartfelt. And I think, and as I said again, Middleton. I always think it's weird when we when we leave Middleton to go and do something. Like last season when we went to Chicago, I think it all felt weird for us. We were like, what are we doing?
Yeah,
We're
that was
not in our natural habitat.
that was an interesting episode. That Chicago episode. Like it felt kind of out of nowhere, but especially because all of a sudden Donna was a new character, and we're like, where did she come from?
Right.
It seemed like almost like they had missed an episode because Carter was gone all of a sudden, and then Donna was here, and
Right.
yeah, it was. I liked the little sort of treasure hunting kind of things that trying to follow all the paths and when so and so got hot dogs and, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And that was fun, but it was definitely a different episode.
It did feel really weird shooting in downtown Toronto. We
Mhm,
haven't done that, or I haven't done that with this show at all, I don't think, in the last
mhm.
14 years, movies and series. So that did feel a bit odd. Um yeah,
Yeah,
I think people, you get used to seeing these people in Middleton, and it's kind of hard
right.
sometimes to see them. It's as though the outside world doesn't really exist.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, what is your favorite part of playing Martha?
Oh gosh. For little moments, I deeply enjoy chairing those community meetings and being kind
Oh
of
yeah.
rude to people. I really deeply, and I also I like it when Martha can sort of preside over special events or weddings. That's always fun. Um, I sort of associate it with places. Like I deeply enjoy being in my office and behind my desk and letting Martha exert what little power she actually has.
Hmm.
So I actually like all those things. What do I like most about Martha? I mean, as an actor, frankly, I like finding the humor and trying to
Yeah.
see how far I can go before, a producer tells me not to, or interpreting something, in a way that they hadn't thought of, but that Martha would do. So, um, and I do like Martha learning lessons. That's the other thing I like. I love the fact that she wants to be a better person, and Cassie has to sort of remind her every now and again. Um, and I like the fact that she's kind of the energizer. She comes into a scene and she's the one who moves the
Hmm.
plot along if there, things happening in the town, or she's kind of a plot extender. And I enjoy that part of it too.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's really interesting because if you go back to the movies, she was an antagonist to
Yeah. And
Cassie.
especially in the first two or three movies. And then I sort of got nice. I remember saying to the producers at the time, when she started to become nice, I said, "Oh my God, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to play this Martha's becoming nice." And they said, "Well, the character's growing." And I said, "No, I get that. I get that. It's just that so that's why I like scenes with Martha's Tom, because she's very different with Tom.
Hmm.
And but I also like scenes when Tom's not there, when she can sort of let her freak flag fly a bit and be a bit more difficult. I
Yeah.
I enjoy that too.
Well, and I think she just knows that the way that she has envisioned is the best way. So why doesn't everyone else just agree with her?
Yes, no, exactly. Exactly. And whatever going through her head comes out of her mouth. So I enjoy that
Hmm.
too.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of similar on One Calls the Heart. They have a character, Rosemary, who is just sort of is surprised when anybody disagrees with her. It's like, oh, okay.
I'm not going to say a stock character, but it's a very familiar character, especially in small towns. That's the other thing about small towns. I think small towns are much more accepting of all of their idiosyncratic
Yeah.
people, their
Yeah.
citizens.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of judgment because you have to live with these people every day. It's not like a big city where you don't see your neighbors,
Hmm.
basically. In Middleton, you have to see everyone and interact with everyone. So you can't just write people off. And I think that's the other thing about small town life. They don't just write people off. They kind of embrace people who are different and
Hmm.
a bit loony. And I appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, very good. You answered all of the questions that I have.
Whew. Whew.
You did a great job. Well, we're really excited about the season and excited to be covering it. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's got a really good cast, and it seems like it would be, even with the COVID drama, a pretty fun group to come to work with every
Yeah,
day.
and I think I think you're going to find a lot of stuff seems to happen this season. It's
Mhm.
sort of it's packed plot wise, and it really moves along. It's in some ways it's a very different season. So it's interesting. I
Yeah.
think in a lot of good ways too.
That's good. Yeah, we're excited to have Vincent back because we really liked
Yes,
him and his
he does
character.
come back. He's a great guy.
Mhm. Yeah, he was one of our favorite characters last
Oh,
season. So
really?
yeah, we
Oh,
really
okay.
liked it. We were kind of Team Vincent over Team Adam, to be honest.
Aw,
Yeah,
Scott's such a nice guy. He's such
I
a good
know.
dancer. I don't know if you
Oh
see the
yeah,
premiere. Oh yeah, he and Mark Ben David, who plays Donovan. Wow, the two of them really good dancers.
who knew? Yeah,
Yeah, I just sort of stand there and see if I can just move my upper body and. Uh, but yeah, no, they really went at it. They were great.
that's great. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking with us again, sixth time. It's
Not
a
at all. You're
record.
welcome in my bedroom anytime.
Okay. Well, very good. And people are listening. Let us know what you think of all the different things that we talked about. We'd love to hear your thoughts. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. Check that out. And make sure you're following the podcast, Hallmarkies Pod and Hallmarkies Podcast, all over social media. And if you're listening on iTunes, please leave your ratings and reviews. And if you are listening on YouTube, please give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We appreciate that so much. And we also have our patron group and merch store. Check that out. We have goodies merch, inspired merch over there. So check that out. And thank you so much, Catherine. This was so much fun.
Oh,
And
my
we'll
pleasure.
have to do number 7 towards the end of the season. That would be fun.
Absolutely. My pleasure. And I hope everyone enjoys the season as much as we did shooting it.
That's great. I'm sure we will. All right,
Okay.
bye. Bye, everyone.
Bye.